I hired an alien maid because I thought it'd be efficient, no need for breaks, no complaints, and thanks to the new intergalactic peace accords, legal. I'd seen a few ads online and found one for a Zalari named Lyra who came highly recommended. She had solid reviews and impressive cleaning skills, so I figured, why not? The first day she arrived, I noticed how calm and focused she was. She was a slender figure with iridescent skin that shimmered between blues and greens, her eyes large and black with no visible pupils. She moved around the house with graceful efficiency, leaving every surface spotless. She barely spoke, but she didn't need to. Lyra was a model of quiet precision. It was a few weeks into her employment that I noticed something odd. I'd come home from work and find that certain snacks have vanished from the pantry. At first, I assumed she didn't need human food, but maybe she was curious and nibbling out of some desire to try Earth's cuisine. I asked her about it, but she shook her head and denied eating anything. One evening, I decided to stay home just to watch her work and see if I could catch her in the act. After all, if I could prove it, maybe we could have an honest conversation about it. So, I pretended to go out and sat her there quietly in the shadows of the living room, peering into the kitchen. Around midnight, I saw her slip into the kitchen, but what happened next was not what I expected. Lyra didn't go for the pantry or the fridge. Instead, she pulled out a tablet from her uniform and started scrolling, her attention completely absorbed. I craned my neck to see what she was reading, and my blood ran cold when I caught a glimpse of the screen. It was an article titled, Top 10 Ways to Prepare Human Meat, a Guide to Pleasing the Zalari Palate. My heart pounded. I knew the Zalari were carnivorous, but no one had told me that humans were on the menu. She turned the tablet slightly, and I could see her large, dark eyes widen as she read each line with intense fascination. She made a note with what looked like a touch of excitement, her fingertips glowing slightly as she highlighted some details. Unable to contain my fear any longer, I took a deep breath and spoke up. Lyra, I called, stepping out from the shadows. She frowned, her tablet slipping from her hands as she turned to face me, looking almost guilty. Lyra, were you planning to at me? I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated, then shook her head vigorously. Human, misunderstanding, she exclaimed, her voice high-pitched, a stark contrast to her usually calm demeanor. I raised an eyebrow. Then why were you reading an article on how to cook human meat? She looked down at her feet, her skin shifting to a shade closer to turquoise used the Zalari for embarrassment. I am researcher, she said slowly, searching for the words. On Zalari, we do not eat humans, but some clans. Yes, they, she looked around, then gestured helplessly with her hands. I study human culture for understanding. So, you're saying you just study how to eat humans? I asked, still skeptical. Yes, she insisted, her eyes wide and sincere. I am fascinated by humans' ways, not cooking way, she added quickly, but knowledge. She looked around nervously, as though trying to find a way to make this less awkward. So, this isn't a study for personal consumption? I asked. No, she shook her head again. I admire humans, resilient, creative, intelligent. I want to know about all of you. Her eyes shone, and I felt a bit of my fear ebb away. But the articles on eating humans, I pushed. She sighed. Curiosity only, she said, placing her hand on her chest. Some Zalari come here, do bad things. I want to understand, so I avoid mistake. It was a strange explanation, but as I looked at her, something in her wide, earnest eyes made me believe her. She had an intense curiosity about humans, maybe too much, but it wasn't malevolent. All right, I said, relaxing a bit, but no more reading cooking guides on human meat, deal? She nodded vigorously. Promise, human, only laundry guides from now on. A hint of a smile crept onto her face. After that night, I'd occasionally catch her with her tablet, engrossed in yet another article on human culture, though she'd always quickly swipe to something innocuous, like cleaning techniques. Over time, I realized Lyra wasn't just an alien maid, she was an alien anthropologist, of sorts, and despite the strange beginning, our friendship grew.
Over the next few weeks, Lyra's fascination with humans became even more apparent. She'd pause mid-task to ask me questions like, why humans celebrate birthdays with fire on sweet bread, or why you tell each other good luck but not good skill. Sometimes her questions were so left field I'd spend half an hour trying to answer her, realizing I'd never thought about these things before myself. One evening, we sat in the living room after dinner, and Lyra was flipping through a stack of cookbooks I'd given her to keep her curiosity focused on human-safe recipes. She pointed to a page and asked, why do humans make bread look like animals? Is it to frighten small children? She squinted suspiciously at the bunny-shaped bread rolls in the picture. It's actually supposed to be cute, I explained. People like making things that look fun or familiar. It's kind of whimsical. She tilted her head, thinking, Zalari would find this strange. We make food look very functional, shapes for stacking, not looking like small creature friends. It was hard to imagine Lyra, or any Zalari, sitting around shaping food into cute animals. Their whole aesthetic was sleek and practical, almost minimalist. Even her casual clothing looked like it belonged on a spaceship's control deck, and she wore it around the house as if she were ready to start piloting a starship at a moment's notice. Humans do a lot of things for fun, I said. Sometimes we even do things that are totally unnecessary just because they make us laugh, or feel better. She seemed to consider this thoughtfully, a slight glow radiating from her fingertips. You humans always seeking new ideas, joy, connection, she said, almost reverently. Maybe that is why you are so adaptable. Then, she looked at me with a bit of hesitation. Would you teach me? Teach you, what exactly? I asked, a little taken aback. Teach me how to do human things for joy, she said, leaning forward, to play, to create, without purpose. I think I would like to understand this feeling. There was something so genuine in her request that I couldn't help but smile. All right, Lyra, let's start with something simple. That's how I ended up teaching an alien how to bake cookies. She was clumsy at first, unfamiliar with human kitchen utensils, and I ended up with flour all over my kitchen. But her enthusiasm was infectious. She was surprisingly diligent, her fingers lighting up as she managed to roll the dough, pressing out cookies in crooked circles. When we pulled them out of the oven, Lyra looked at the slightly lumpy, golden cookies with intense curiosity. She picked one up delicately and sniffed it, her face lighting up with cautious delight. She took a careful bite, and her expression shifted. Sweet, warm, so soft, she exclaimed, staring at the half-eaten cookie as though it held some grand secret of the universe. I laughed. That's just a basic chocolate chip cookie. Humans have tons of other sweets and desserts. She looked at me, wide-eyed. Then we must try them all, she declared, the little lights in her skin flickering with excitement. It was the first time I'd seen her truly exhilarated. And so, Lyra's human lessons became part of our routine. I taught her how to fold paper into origami, how to hum along with songs, and even how to play basic card games. Each lesson was a new adventure to her, and every success was met with that same intense fascination. One day, she surprised me by pulling out a small sketchpad, showing me rough drawings she'd done of everyday objects, my coffee mug, a potted plant, a streetlight outside my window. This drawing, she said carefully, I find it also joyful. I was amazed. Lyra's art wasn't exactly traditional, but her efforts to understand and capture human joy were somehow more touching than anything I'd expected. And for a while, everything felt normal. She was my alien maid-turned-friend, and I was her guide into human oddities. But one night, I came home late from work to find Lyra pacing the living room, looking tense. Her usual calm had been replaced by worry, and her fingertips were flickering in a way I'd never seen before. Lyra, what's wrong? I asked, setting my bag down. She stopped, looking up at me with wide, almost haunted eyes. I have made a mistake, she said softly. A mistake? What happened? She hesitated, glancing down. I have been contacting my Zalari friends, telling them of humans and our lessons. She swallowed, her iridescent skin dimming slightly. But one of them, they misunderstood. Misunderstood? How? I asked, feeling a chill creep up my spine. She looked up, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her expression. One of them is coming here, to see these joys of humans. She took a shaky breath. But they do not come as friends. They think humans are delicacies. A wave of dread washed over me as the reality sank in. Another Zalari was coming, not to learn about humans, but to hunt us. What? What do we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes determined. We prepare. I have learned from you, human. Now I will teach you how we protect.
That night, my cozy little apartment turned into an alien training ground. Lyra took charge. Her calm, meticulous manner suddenly transformed into something far more intense. Gone was the curious, slightly clumsy housekeeper. She moved with a confidence and precision I'd never seen, her movements sharp and purposeful. Zalari combat is not like human, she explained, her voice low but steady. We rely on quickness, precision, and knowing our enemy's weaknesses. I swallowed. Weaknesses? She nodded, her fingers glowing faintly as she adjusted her posture, her skin shifting to a shade of deep blue. Serious, focused. Your friend will not look like me. They will be larger, stronger, less gentle. Her voice faltered for a moment before she regained her composure. I have warned them against coming, but their curiosity has turned into hunger. We spent hours going over defense techniques that were completely foreign to me. Zalari fought with swift movements and faintly glowing touch-activated devices she referred to as glimmers. They were little more than a set of alien brass knuckles when activated. They released a burst of intense light and energy that could knock an enemy off balance. Lyra handed me a glimmer. Its faint, pulsing light casting strange shadows across the walls. I fumbled with it, feeling its weight against my palm, unsure how something so small could make a difference. Trust it, Lyra said, placing her hand over mine, guiding my fingers to wrap around the device properly. Her touch was unexpectedly warm, and she gave me a small nod of encouragement. Trust yourself. We went through drills all night, practicing different ways to evade, distract, and disorient. She emphasized that a direct fight was unwise. Our best chance was to lure her compatriot into making mistakes. As dawn approached, I finally collapsed on the couch, utterly exhausted. Lyra, however, was wide awake, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Do you think this will work? I asked, half hoping she'd tell me we were overreacting, that maybe her friend would change their mind. She looked at me, and for a moment, there was a flicker of doubt in her dark eyes. I hope, she said softly, but Zalari who see humans as food, they do not change easily. I was about to respond when a faint hum vibrated through the walls of my apartment, like a distant, low rumble that set my teeth on edge. Lyra stiffened, her head jerking toward the window. They're here, she whispered. I followed her gaze and saw a small, sleek ship descending silently outside, cloaking itself in a shimmer that bent the light around it. As the ship landed, the cloak faded, revealing a hulking, armored figure stepping down from the vessel. The visitor was unmistakably Zalari, though far more imposing than Lyra. This alien was broader, their skin a deep, gunmetal gray, with bioluminescent markings that pulsed along their limbs, a predator's camouflage, built for stealth and speed. Lyra turned to me, her expression fierce. Remember our practice, follow my lead, and whatever you do, stay quiet. We crept to the far end of the room, crouching behind the kitchen island. Lyra tapped a small, spherical device on her belt, a decoy that emitted faint traces of heat, enough to mimic a human presence. She tossed it toward the living room entrance, where it rolled to a stop, quietly radiating warmth. The door to the apartment slid open, and the Zalari predator stepped inside, moving with a lethal grace. His eyes scanned the room, his head cocking slightly as he picked up on the decoy's signal. He began stalking toward it, his footsteps barely audible. Lyra pressed her finger to her lips, signaling for silence, then motioned for me to inch toward the back exit. We crept, inch by inch, toward the door. I could feel my pulse racing, each step seeming to echo louder than the last. Just as we reached the exit, the decoy emitted a soft beep, signaling its battery had depleted. The Zalari's head snapped in our direction. In one swift movement, Lyra activated her glimmer and hurled it across the room. It emitted a blinding flash, illuminating the predator's face in stark detail. He snarled, momentarily disoriented by the intense light. Run, Lyra hissed, pushing me toward the stairwell. I bolted, heart pounding, hearing the heavy thud of footsteps as the predator regained his bearings. Lyra was right behind me, her steps light and quick. We stumbled down the stairs, nearly tripping over each other, until we reached the building's basement level. We ducked behind a cluster of old storage units, trying to catch our breath. I could hear the predator's footsteps above us, prowling, searching. Now we wait, Lyra whispered. She activated another glimmer, this one emitting a faint, constant glow. She placed it strategically near one of the basement's entrance points, a decoy in case the Zalori entered. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Then, we heard a low growl reverberate through the basement. As the predator picked up the signal and moved toward it, Lyra tensed beside me, watching his movements carefully. When he reached the decoy, Lyra sprang into action. She activated her final glimmer, this one a more potent flash that exploded in a burst of blinding light, catching the predator off guard. In his disoriented state, she lunged forward, landing a strike with a swift precision that made him stagger. I jumped in, slamming the glimmer into his side. Feeling the jolt of energy pulse through it, the predator roared in pain, his massive form swaying, giving Lyra the opening she needed. With one final strike, she hit a pressure point near his neck, sending a shockwave through his body. He collapsed, struggling to breathe, his eyes widening as he looked up at her in shock. "Return to your ship," Lyra said coldly, her voice steady. "If you come near him again, you will regret it." The predator glared at her, but the defeat was clear in his eyes. With a pained grunt, he dragged himself to his feet, staggering toward the exit. Once he was gone, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Lyra, that was. She looked at me, her expression softening, exhaustion finally showing in her features. "Necessary," she said simply. We stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over us. Finally, she spoke. "You trusted me," she said softly, "even when my kind brought danger to your doorstep." After that night, things changed between Lyra and me. She wasn't just my alien friend anymore. She'd proven she would risk everything to protect me, and I felt the same for her. There was a quiet understanding, an unspoken pact. In the days that followed, I realized I was no longer just teaching her about human culture. We were learning to navigate the strange new terrain of trust and loyalty between species, something I never thought I'd experience outside a sci-fi movie. For the next few weeks, we kept a low profile, careful to avoid any further encounters with hostile Zalori, but our brush with danger left me with a gnawing feeling that this was just the beginning. If other Zalori had gotten word of humans as a potential delicacy, I doubted they'd be the last ones to visit. One night, I came home to find Lyra absorbed in her tablet again. She was reading something intently, her eyes darting across the screen, her fingers faintly glowing as she highlighted various lines of text. When I asked her about it, she looked up, her expression serious. "I am researching," she said, her voice careful, almost hesitant. "Researching what?" I asked, a bit wary after the last time she'd said that. "The galactic records," she explained, turning the tablet so I could see. "There are rumors spreading about a group of Zalori who see humans as a rare resource. They call themselves the Gourmands. They're not just curious, they're organized, dangerous. They've already started looking for other isolated humans." A chill ran through me. "So, there are more of them?" She nodded, her expression grim. "Yes, the one who came for you was only a scout, one of the less aggressive members. The Gourmands have been searching for exotic life forms to satisfy their particular tastes, and now, humans are on their radar." I took a deep breath, the reality of it settling over me like a cold weight. "So what do we do?" Lyra's gaze hardened. "We warn others. Humans should know what's out there, but I also think it is time to find allies. In the Galactic Alliance, there are species who oppose the Gourmands, who work to protect others from such threats. If we can reach them, they might help us." That set us on a new course, preparing to make contact with other alien groups. Lyra taught me how to navigate the Galactic Network, a highly regulated communications system used by Alliance members. It was tricky business for an unregistered human like me to access it, but with her guidance, I managed to make my first ping out into the universe. We sent a message to the Galactic Alliance's Interspecies Protection Division, explaining the situation and requesting assistance. Days passed with no response, and I was beginning to think we'd been ignored, or worse, that the message had been intercepted by the Gourmands themselves. But then, one evening, our terminal flashed with a notification, a reply. Lyra and I exchanged a look, both of us tense, and then she opened the message. It was a short, encrypted note from a representative of the Alliance. They confirmed that they have received our message and have been aware of similar incidents on other worlds. The Gurmans were a growing threat, and there was limited time to act before they expanded their operations. The representative offered to meet us at a neutral location, a small, off-the-grid space station known as Point Lumin, a haven for those seeking to avoid attention from the Alliance or other intergalactic powers. The meeting would take place in 2 days. I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. This could be huge, I said, glancing at Lyra. If they're willing to listen, maybe we can actually make a difference. Maybe we can keep other humans safe. She nodded, her eyes reflecting a steely resolve. Yes, and if we succeed, perhaps we can also help other vulnerable species who are hunted. Over the next 2 days, we prepared meticulously. Lyra helped me adjust to the idea of traveling through galactic space, what to expect, how to handle myself in front of alien officials, even a crash course on various intergalactic customs. She outfitted me with a small communication device, one designed to look like an earpiece, but capable of translating down scenes of languages in real time. Finally, the day arrived. We left Earth under the cover of night, using a discreet, automated shuttle system that Lyra had access to. As we traveled through the quiet void of space, I found myself staring out the window, watching Earth shrink into the distance. It was surreal, knowing that I was leaving behind everything familiar to confront something completely unknown. When we reached Point Lumin, the station was exactly as Lyra had described, dimly lit, sparsely populated, and filled with an assortment of alien travelers. The place hummed with the low thrum of distant machinery, and the air was thick with the smell of strange, metallic scents mixed with something faintly spicy. We were directed to a private meeting room, where the Alliance representative was waiting. She was a towering figure with scales that shimmered in iridescent hues, her face partially obscured by a translucent visor. "You are the human who reached out," she said, her voice low but clear, tinged with a calm authority, "and the Zalari who wishes to aid them." Lyra and I nodded, both of us tense. The representative studied us for a moment before speaking. "The Gurmans are indeed a threat. They operate outside the bounds of the Alliance, exploiting our laws to avoid punishment. But your situation is unique. Rarely do we receive requests for aid directly from humans." "Well, that's kind of the problem, isn't it?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Humans don't even know you exist, let alone that there are aliens who think of us as a food source. If they did, they'd want to protect themselves too." She regarded me thoughtfully. "The Alliance is committed to protecting sentient species from exploitation, but our resources are limited. We can only extend our protection to those who are officially registered." My heart sank. "But Earth, humanity isn't registered in the Alliance." "Not yet," she replied, her gaze sharpening. "But there is a possibility. If you are willing to take on the role of an emissary, we could begin the process of introducing humanity to the Alliance." Lyra's eyes widened, and she glanced at me with a mixture of surprise and pride. "An emissary," she murmured. "It is a great responsibility." The representative continued. "If you accept, you would be tasked with representing your species' interests, learning our protocols, and helping humanity transition into an era of intergalactic awareness. But it would not be without risk. The Gurmans would see you as a threat, and Earth's entry into the Alliance would not be immediate. It would take time, patience, and diplomacy.